The day they fired my mother, a woman who'd given them nearly 3 decades of her life, I looked that executive straight in the eye and said exactly 2 words. I quit. 2 years later, when I walked back through those doors, they didn't even recognize who their new owner was. They thought they were getting rid of dead weight. What they actually did was light a fire under someone who learned everything about hostile takeovers, leveraged buyouts, and the beautiful art of corporate revenge. My name is Natalie Carter, and I grew up in the fluorescent-lit hallways of Hendricks and Moore Logistics. When your mother dedicates 28 years to a company, it stops being just her workplace. It becomes your second home, your playground, your classroom in corporate America. Mom, Deborah Carter, to everyone at H&M, started as a junior HR assistant when she was 23. I was born 5 years later, and from the moment I could walk, I was toddling through those office corridors during her weekend overtime shifts. She'd set up a makeshift playpen in the corner of her office, surrounded by filing cabinets and policy manuals. By the time I was 10, I knew the building's layout better than most employees. I'd spent countless snow days and sick days shadowing her, watching her mediate disputes, comfort laid-off workers with dignity, and fight for better benefits packages. She wasn't just processing paperwork, she was the soul of that company, the bridge between corporate decisions and human consequences. Companies are built on people. Natalie, she'd tell me over Chinese takeout in her office. Never forget that behind every number in your spreadsheets, there's a person with a mortgage, kids, dreams. When I graduated from Indiana University with my finance degree, joining H&M felt like destiny. Mom had paved the way, but I was determined to build my own path. I started as a financial analyst, crunching numbers in a cubicle 3 floors below her executive office. We had an unspoken rule. At work, she was Mrs. Carter, the senior VP of Human Resources, not Mom. Our relationship was the worst-kept secret in the building, but I earned my stripes through 16-hour days and spotless analytical reports. Still, nothing beat our Thursday lunch tradition. Same corner table in the cafeteria, splitting a Caesar salad while she shared wisdom disguised as casual conversation. Those were the golden years. Mom flourishing in her element, me climbing the corporate ladder on my own merit. Hendricks and Moore wasn't just where we worked, it was where we thrived, where our professional lives intertwined with an unbreakable mother-daughter bond. We were both exactly where we belonged. Until Elliot Granger arrived and destroyed everything. The email came on a Tuesday morning. I was reviewing quarterly projections when my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Emergency meeting with new CEO. Something's wrong. Elliot Granger had been hired 6 weeks earlier, a transformational leader brought in to modernize operations. He swept through departments like a plague, terminating anyone he deemed resistant to change. We all knew his type, the corporate executioner with an MBA and a God complex, hired to slash costs and boost stock prices. That afternoon, I watched Mom walk out of the executive conference room, her face pale but composed. 28 years of perfect performance reviews, 3 decades of loyalty, reduced to a 15-minute termination meeting. Redundant, they called her, misaligned with the company's new direction. The real reason? Granger wanted to install his own people, younger, cheaper, more willing to look the other way when he bent rules. I found her cleaning out her office, handling each item like an archaeologist preserving artifacts. The photo of us at my college graduation, her world's best mom mug I'd given her in 3rd grade. 28 years compressed into a cardboard box. Don't make a scene. Natalie, she whispered when she saw the fury in my eyes. It's just business. Just business? This woman had missed my school plays to resolve employee crises. She'd worked through pneumonia to ensure year-end bonuses were processed. She'd been the one to personally deliver death benefits to grieving families, holding their hands through the worst moments of their lives. I stormed straight to Granger's office. He was sitting behind his mahogany desk, already reviewing resumes for Mom's replacement, probably someone half her age at half the salary. This is a mistake, I said, not bothering to knock. He looked up, his gray eyes cold as steel. Miss Carter, I understand this is personal for you, but H&M needs fresh perspectives. Your mother's methods were admirable, but outdated. Her methods built the culture of this company. Exactly why they need to change. He returned to his papers, dismissing me like I was nothing. I trust you can separate your personal feelings from your professional obligations. Your work here has been satisfactory. Don't jeopardize that. I stood there for a long moment, watching this vulture dismantle everything Mom had built. Then I said the two words that would change everything. I quit. He actually looked surprised. That's rather impulsive. No, I said, already backing toward the door. That's loyalty. Something you wouldn't understand. That night, Mom and I sat in our kitchen, sharing a bottle of wine and trying not to cry. But as she talked about starting over at 55, something darker than sadness filled my chest. It was determination, cold and patient. They'll regret this, I promised her. She patted my hand. Let it go, sweetheart. Living well is the best revenge. But I had something much better in mind. Chicago glittered beneath my apartment window, a far cry from Greystone's suburban sprawl. I'd landed at Foresight Ventures within 2 weeks of leaving H&M. Turns out, rage is excellent motivation for nailing interviews. Why did you leave your previous position? They'd asked. I discovered I had bigger ambitions than their leadership could accommodate, I'd answered. True enough, Foresight was everything H&M wasn't. Sharp, hungry, playing in the major leagues of corporate finance. My new boss, Marcus Reed, was a former Goldman Sachs VP who'd built the firm into a private equity powerhouse. He didn't care about my background. He cared that I could analyze a company's financials and spot weaknesses others missed. I became his shadow, absorbing everything. Hostile takeovers, leveraged buyouts, the delicate art of acquiring companies whose leadership had grown complacent. Every deal was an education in corporate warfare. You have a gift, Marcus told me after I identified a transportation company ripe for acquisition. You see the human element others miss. Which managers will fold, which will fight, where the loyalty fractures are. Thanks. Mom, I thought. All those years watching you navigate corporate politics weren't wasted. I threw myself into the work. 16-hour days became 18. Weekends disappeared, while my old colleagues at H&M posted happy hour photos on social media. I was dissecting balance sheets and building relationships with venture capitalists. Every skill I acquired, every connection I made, was a weapon in an arsenal I was steadily building. Mom, meanwhile, had found a new position at a nonprofit in Indianapolis. Smaller salary, smaller office, but she seemed happy enough. We talked every Sunday, and I never mentioned what I was really doing in Chicago. She thought I was building a new life. She was right, just not in the way she imagined. The intelligence came through my network. Former H&M employees who'd escaped Granger's purges reached out, sharing horror stories, morale in freefall, major clients jumping ship. The transportation division, Mom's careful hiring had built that team, hemorrhaging talent. Granger's transformational leadership was transforming H&M into a case study in corporate decay. They're vulnerable, I told Marcus over bourbon one night, showing him my analysis. Debt-to-equity ratio climbing, stock price down 30%, management team in chaos. He studied my work, a slow smile spreading across his face. You've been tracking them. It's a good investment opportunity. Bullshit. This is personal. He leaned back. But personal can be profitable. What's your play? Quiet accumulation. Buy the debt through shell companies. Acquire minority stakes through various funds. Build a position before they realize they're being stalked. And then we make them an offer they can't refuse. Or we take it hostile. Marcus raised his glass. I love it. Emotional investing usually fails. But you've turned revenge into a business strategy. As I clinked my glass against his, I thought about Granger sitting in Mom's old office, probably congratulating himself on his cost-cutting genius while his company bled out beneath him. He had no idea what was coming. The acquisition started with breadcrumbs. Through Foresight's subsidiary, Midwest Capital Holdings, we quietly bought $2.3 million in H&M's distressed debt. The paper trail led nowhere near my name, just another vulture fund picking at the bones of a struggling company. Their accounts receivable are a disaster. I reported to Marcus during our weekly strategy session. Granger fired half the collections department. They're sitting on $8 million in overdue invoices. We bought those debts at 40 cents on the dollar. Next came the stock accumulation. H&M was publicly traded but thinly held, mostly institutional investors and the founding family's trust. We worked through 3 different funds, never buying enough to trigger disclosure requirements. By month 4, we controlled 12% of outstanding shares across our various entities. The beautiful part? Granger was too busy playing corporate dictator to notice the circling sharks. His quarterly reports painted rosy pictures while the numbers told a different story. Revenue down 18%, employee turnover at 35%. Their biggest logistics client had just opened negotiations with competitors. Time for Phase 2, Marcus announced, sliding a contract across his desk. H&M needs a bridge loan to make payroll next quarter. We're going to give it to them. The terms were brutal but legal. 14% interest. Board observation rights. Covenants that would trigger default if they missed any financial targets. Targets I knew they couldn't hit. I flew back to Indiana wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than I used to make in a month. The security guard at H&M's entrance didn't recognize me. Perfect. The meeting was in Conference Room A, the same room where I'd spun in chairs as a kid. Granger sat across from our legal team, flanked by his CFO and general counsel. He looked older, grayer, the stress eating at him like acid. 14% is highway robbery, his CFO protested. Then find another lender. Our lawyer replied smoothly. Oh wait, you've already been rejected by 6 banks. I sat quietly, taking notes on a legal pad. Just another anonymous analyst. Granger's eyes passed over me twice without a flicker of recognition. 2 years had transformed me from the emotional girl who'd stormed into his office into someone he couldn't even see. They signed. They had no choice. Over the next 6 months, we tightened the noose. Every missed covenant triggered penalties. Every penalty increased our control. We offered helpful consultants who reported back on internal chaos. We extended more credit at worse terms, converting debt to equity at painful ratios. They're planning to sell the transportation division, one of our plants reported. Granger's shopping it to cover the debt service. Block it, I ordered. Have Midwest Capital make a lowball offer that ties them up in negotiations. By winter, we owned 31% of H&M through various vehicles. The second largest shareholder had 8%. The math was beautiful and inevitable. Ready for the kill shot? Marcus asked. I thought about Mom, rebuilding her life at a nonprofit while Granger destroyed her legacy. 1 more quarter, I want him desperate. Careful, Marcus warned. Revenge is best served cold, not frozen. But I wasn't worried about timing. I was playing a different game now, one where patience was power and power was everything. The boardroom hadn't changed. Same oak table, same leather chairs, same portrait of founder William Hendricks glaring down at everyone. What had changed was the faces around the table. Half of Granger's hand-picked board looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I entered last, deliberately. Navy suit, grandmother's pearls, hair pulled back in the same style Mom used to wear. The folder in my hands contained everything, every shell company, every fund transfer, every carefully orchestrated step that led to this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, the corporate secretary began. We have a request for an emergency session from Midwest Capital Holdings and affiliated entities, collectively representing 41% of outstanding shares. Granger's head snapped up from his phone. His eyes scanned the room, looking for the threat. They passed over me once, twice, then froze. Hello, Elliot, I said, taking the seat directly across from him. I believe you know me, Natalie Carter. You fired my mother 2 years ago. The color drained from his face like water from a broken dam. This is some kind of joke, he stammered. The only joke, I replied, opening my folder, is your leadership. Would you like me to read the numbers? Revenue down 34% under your watch. 3 major clients lost. Employee satisfaction at historic lows. Stock price? I smiled. Well, that's been quite helpful for my acquisition strategy. You can't. This is illegal. Everything I've done is perfectly legal. I learned from the best. After all, you taught me that business isn't personal. Remember, it's just numbers. And your numbers, Elliot, are catastrophic. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd been briefed on the ownership change, but not the connection. Grainger's CFO was frantically texting, probably to legal. I call for a vote of no confidence in current leadership, I announced. All in favor? My allies on the board, planted through our loan covenants, raised their hands immediately. 2 independent directors followed, then another, and another. You orchestrated this, Grainger sputtered. You've been planning this for 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days. I confirmed. Ever since you decided my mother's 3 decades of service meant nothing. Ever since you called her redundant. This is personal vengeance. No. I leaned forward. This is business. You're a failed CEO who destroyed shareholder value. I'm a major shareholder protecting my investment. The fact that you're also the man who devastated my family? That's just... What would you call it? Synergy. The vote was 8-3. Grainger was done. Security will escort you out, I informed him. You have 15 minutes to clear your office. Don't worry, I'm sure someone with your transformational leadership skills will land on their feet. The job market's very forgiving for failed executives in their 60s. His face went from pale to purple. You vindictive little... Careful, I warned. I'm your largest shareholder now. Show some respect. As security led him out, I took a seat at the head of the table. It was still warm. From this angle, I could see the entire city through the windows, the same view he'd enjoyed while dismantling everything my mother built. Now, I said to the remaining board, let's discuss the future of H&M. My first act as majority shareholder was signing the consultancy agreement. The name at the top made my hand pause for just a moment. Deborah Carter, Senior Advisor, Human Resources and Corporate Culture. You sure about this? Marcus asked over video call from Chicago. Bringing your mother back could look like nepotism. It's a 6-month consulting contract to help stabilize workforce morale, I replied. We've lost 40% of our employees under Grainger. She knows this company's DNA better than anyone. What I didn't say, I needed her to see this, to walk back through those doors with her head high. The real satisfaction came in the details. I had facilities restore her old office, not the cramped nonprofit cubicle she'd settled for, but the corner suite overlooking the atrium. I had IT reactivate her email. Finding 2 years of farewell and thinking of you messages from employees Grainger had silenced. The morning she returned, I watched from the executive floor as word spread through the building. By lunch, there was a line outside her office, employees who'd survived Grainger's purges, wanting to welcome her back. But I wasn't done. The audit revealed what I'd suspected. Grainger's leadership team, 6 executives he'd imported from his previous company, had awarded themselves bonuses while implementing layoffs. They'd cut training budgets while expensing luxury retreats. They'd eliminated employee appreciation programs while renovating their offices. I called them in, one by one. Effective immediately, I told each of them, sliding termination agreements across the desk. Your services are no longer required. You can't prove any wrongdoing, Grainger's former CFO protested. I'll sue. Please do, I replied. I'd love to depose you about the $300,000 in consulting fees paid to your wife's company, the one that's never had any other clients. They left quietly after that. The message rippled through the organization. The old guard was gone. the culture of fear and favoritism was dead. In its place, we were rebuilding something that looked suspiciously like the company my mother had helped nurture for 3 decades. "You know what you're doing, right?" Mom asked during one of our Thursday lunches, reinstated in the executive dining room. "This isn't just about revenge anymore." I looked around the room, employees laughing over sandwiches, the energy palpably different from 6 months ago, stock price recovering, clients returning, morale surveys showing green for the first time in 2 years. Maybe it started as revenge, I admitted. But somewhere along the way, it became about proving something, that loyalty matters, that treating people with dignity isn't outdated, that you can run a profitable company without destroying the humans inside it. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you." "I learned from the best," I said. "Besides, someone had to show them what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." The last item on my desk that day was Granger's final severance package. Denied for violation of fiduciary duty, he'd get nothing beyond base salary. It seemed fitting. After all, he'd taught me that business wasn't personal. I signed it with my mother's favorite pen. 6 months later, I stood in the same boardroom where I'd taken down Elliot Granger. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the fresh coat of paint and new furniture. The oppressive oak table was gone, replaced with something modern and collaborative. The founder's portrait still hung on the wall, but now it was joined by photos of employee milestones, community service projects, and team celebrations. "The board has voted," our lead independent director announced. "Natalie Carter, you are officially confirmed as CEO of Hendricks and Moore Logistics." I'd planned to stay just long enough to stabilize things, then return to Chicago and Foresight. But somewhere between rebuilding the culture and watching the company transform, H&M had gotten into my blood, just like it had been in Mom's. Granger never fought back publicly. Word in the industry was he'd applied for several positions, only to find doors mysteriously closed. Corporate memories are long, and executive search firms talk. His LinkedIn profile still listed him as CEO at Hendricks and Moore months after his termination. Pride, I suppose, or delusion. I ran into him once, at an industry conference in Indianapolis. He was standing alone at the networking reception, nursing a whiskey while former peers gave him wide berth. When our eyes met, I expected anger, maybe threats. Instead, he just looked diminished. Smaller somehow, like a suit that had been washed in too hot water. "Natalie," he said quietly. "Elliot. I suppose you're satisfied now." I thought about it. No, actually. Satisfaction would have been you realizing my mother's worth before destroying everything. This was just necessary. He opened his mouth, closed it, then walked away. That was the last time I saw him. Mom officially retired on her 60th birthday, this time on her own terms. The company threw her a party that shut down operations for half a day. 300 employees showed up. They gave her a plaque, a pension package that reflected her true contributions, and something more valuable, their respect, restored. "You know," she said that night over champagne in her garden, "I never wanted revenge. It wasn't in me." "Good thing it was in me then." She laughed, that warm sound I'd grown up with. "My fierce girl, you turned something ugly into something worthwhile. The company's better now than it ever was. We still lost 2 years. You deserved better." Maybe. But those 2 years taught you something I never could have. How to fight for what matters. How to play their game and win. How to turn principle into power. Looking back, she was right. Granger had meant to destroy us. Instead, he'd created exactly what he feared most. Someone with the knowledge, connections, and motivation to beat him at his own game. The company thrived. Mom thrived. And me? I learned that the best revenge isn't just living well. It's building something better from the ashes of what someone tried to burn down. Sometimes, in quiet moments in my CEO office, the one that used to be Granger's, I think about that day I quit. 2 words that changed everything. Turns out mom was wrong about one thing. Living well isn't the best revenge. Coming back stronger. That's the best revenge. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate justice and family loyalty. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this tale of revenge served cold resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts. Have you ever witnessed workplace injustice? How do you think you would have handled Natalie's situation? Let me know in the comments.